Good morning, everyone out there on the interwebs. My name is Jared, and today we're going to troubleshoot why the electric cooling fans are not turning on in my 2010 Ford Fusion. Without further ado, let's get started. Alright, for our troubleshooting procedures, the first thing we need to do, and I mentioned this in a different video I have, is we need to check the fuse. That's in a 2010 Fusion, the way it works is the PCM, which is the engine computer, powertrain control module, it tells the cooling fans to come on. There's not a relay involved. There's no temperature sensitive metal like you see on older vehicles. It's computer says turn on after it receives data from the engine engine coolant temperature sensor, ECT. So what is supposed to happen is around 195, 200 degrees Fahrenheit, the fans get commanded to turn on, and they don't. So that's what we need to look at. So step one is the fuse. Now, I've got a diagram pulled up. This is of the fuse box in the engine bay. And the fuse in question that we need to check is fuse number 28. That is the fuse that controls the circuit for the cooling fans on the radiator. So let's go isolate that. This is really annoying. This used to be my brother's car, and he ran a sound system, and the wires are really obnoxious and easy to trip on, so it's kind of annoying. Forgive the wind noise today. We just had some pretty cold weather roll through, and it's supposed to have 20 to 40 mile an hour wind gusts today. Alright, here is our guy in question. This is fuse number 28. You can tell how we're located here. It's the big fuse all the way on the left. You can see that's the only thing it can be. These are your relays over here for various things. Like I said, there is no relay for the cooling fans. It's a fuse. Here's our fuse. Now, when I look at it, it looks okay. I haven't really seen this style of fuse before, but I don't see anything broken on the inside. But what I will do is I will get my multimeter, and I'm going to check resistance across the fuse, and if resistance is almost zero, then the fuse is good. If we get a bunch of resistance, that means this fuse is bad. So that's our first step. Now the multimeter's in the car. Let's take a look-see. Oh hush. Alright, let's get the multimeter. So on your multimeter, you're going to want to set, this one's kind of a fancy one, but most multimeters do have a setting for resistance. That's going to be the omega symbol, or the funny looking horseshoe, basically. Set it to the funny looking horseshoe. And of course, I did not grab the fuse. Let me go grab that. I have fuse. Alright, so we're going to get our positive in one side. Now the probe alright, yeah, probe will fit. Good. So we got to get a positive and a negative in there. I'm trying to figure out how to do this one-handed. I'm going to kind of trap that right there. Okay. We have negative and positive. Alright. So we have a resistance reading of 0.1. Yeah, this fuse is good. Because if it wasn't, it would be some crazy number because the fuse had blown and it wasn't physically connected anymore. So we're good. We have a good fuse. So on to step 2, we need to figure out where power is failing, if it is failing. Okay, so the next thing I checked was to make sure that when I had the key in the run position, that we're seeing 12 volts at the the power connector for the fan, which is right here. So again, with my multimeter, this time I have it set to volts right here. Now mine is smart enough that when it sees the voltage coming in, it'll know if it's DC or AC and adjust accordingly. You don't have to do anything. But on yours, you may have to tell it DC, which is direct current, which is like what you get from a battery, or it may be AC, alternating current, which is like if you're testing something inside your house. You want DC. AC, no worky. So again, we're going to take our probes and we're going to place them on the metal contacts and try to do this one-handed. This is aggravating. Alright, bear with me here. Alright, I think I got it. Yeah, okay. So you can see we've got 12 volts at the plug. That means that power is getting to the fan shroud and to the fan. So we're good there. Now there are 3 pins here. The 2 big ones are power. That's what we checked. And then there's a small one here. This is where the signal from the PCM, the engine computer, when it gets hot enough, this is the go signal, and that's what will tell the fan assembly to turn on. So there is the brains of the fan assembly right here. I think actually that's the clutch, because the fans are also get commanded to turn on when you turn on your air conditioning because of the additional load, so that it will pull air in past the condenser, which sits in front of the radiator to keep your AC cool. So that's probably part of that. Here is our connector on that side. It looks really good. I checked. The copper looks good. I don't see discoloration. I don't see oxidation, for lack of a better term. The pins look straight. None of them look broken. There's one more connector which I cannot figure out how to disconnect, but this is the actual fan to brain box here. And one of the things that I read was that you could disconnect this when it's hot and reconnect it, and if it fires off, that means that the switch is bad. But we don't have a relay. It's from the PCM, and we already know that we're getting good power here. So the next step is I'm going to fire the car up, let it get up to say about 200 degrees, and then I think I can use the meter and I can check against ground, which is this blade right here. Have one probe on the PCM signal connector and one probe on ground, and I should see it changing, and that's the go signal. If it's steady, like if I check it right now, it comes back as 2.5 volts should be. Let's see if I can get them to touch. Yeah, now it's negative 2.5 volts because I have the connectors reversed, and the reason why it's flaking out is because I had bad contact. There we go. So it's 2.5 volts right now, and notice it's steady, it's not changing. So that is the off signal, and I think what happens is if that starts fluctuating up and down, that's the PCM saying go, turn on, and we can check that. We just gotta let the engine get hot enough to where the ECT tells the computer, hey, it's getting hot, and then the computer says okay and turns it on. If we don't see that signal, that would mean something's up with the PCM, which that's really bad, but we'll see. Alright, so we are up to 174 degrees. So at this point, the thermostat should not have opened yet. We should not have a signal from the PCM to tell the fan to go. So we're still just kind of waiting. I will bring you back once we get to around 195 or so. Alright, so we're at 196 Fahrenheit. About this point is where the thermostat should be opening, and that should temporarily drop the temp, or at least hold it steady. and we should be seeing a signal from the PCM to make the fan turn on. So we're going to get the meter and we're going to go check that. Alright guys, after some trials and tribulations, finally have the cooling system working in its entirety. So there are two things that I had to do. Thing number one is, just out of a sense of precaution, an overabundance of caution, I went ahead and I switched out the thermostat. I made that a separate video. I'll put that on the channel in a couple of days. Thing number two is I had to replace the controller for the fan, the radiator fan. I don't know why I had to replace it, but I did. So I went to the junkyard, I snagged a controller, and now the fan is running. In fact, you see how the temperature is decreasing right now? That's because the fan's running. It kicks on at around 221, 222 degrees, and it'll keep running until it gets it down to around 212, thereabouts, and then it'll turn off. So after replacing the fan controller, getting a new thermostat in there, we're now seeing the fan consistently turn on and cool the vehicle, so it is safe to drive. And that also validates the temperature sender, which is what sends you which is what powers your temperature gauge. It's different from the engine coolant temperature sensor, which is what feeds this data. And this is what the PCM, or your engine computer, is looking at when it decides to turn the fan on and off. Because this particular setup does not have a relay. It just works, or it doesn't. So all of this is now working correctly, so we can proceed with the drive. I'm thinking what's going to happen is tomorrow I'll get some help to put this hood back on, because you can put a hood on by yourself, but it's kind of a pain in the butt. So I'll get some help. We'll get the hood on, we'll get the body lines looking decent, we'll get tires back on, and then we're going to take some test drives, get the transmission nice and warm, and then we'll see what we look like fluid wise, and we're going to adjust that, and life is looking pretty dang good. Alright guys, this was the offending part that gave up and died on me. This is the radiator cooling fan controller. Not sure that's what Ford calls it, that's what I call it. And when I pulled this out, I realized this is aftermarket. This is not an original Motorcraft part. And I talked to my brother about it, and he said, yeah, when he had some work done on it, the tech determined that his had died, and so this got put in. And I guess it decided to give up the ghost. And it mounts like this with the bulge facing inwards. It has a single screw that holds it in. Let me see if I can get a view on it here. Almost. There we are. So it's supposed to be it's either a 5 or a 5.5 millimeter. And that's the only one. It only has a single fastener holding it in. And what I found to swap it out is you can actually pull it out from here. You don't have to dig into anything else. As long as you're careful, you got just enough room to feed that out. And then swap out the part, feed it back in, and reconnect. You've got two connectors, one here, and there's one down there. And they're both just push down the tang and pull the connector setups. Nothing fancy. And once I did that, everything started working correctly. Alright guys, that is going to do it for this cooling system troubleshoot that culminated into the replacement of the radiator fan cooling controller. If you liked what you found in this video, or you enjoyed the content, please leave a comment. If you got some criticism, leave a comment too. I'm striving to learn here. And please like, share, and subscribe to help grow this channel. And I will see you later.